Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, The New Order as United States of Brazil. Now, last time we were here together, the elections kicked off, but not only have elections decided to kick off, we have something brewing in the background. A scandal that risks blowing our entire administration out of the water. Now, whether that will happen or not, we just gonna have to. We get to sit back and quietly wait in anticipation to see if that happens. That was a fucking mess of a sentence, wasn't it? Hopefully you guys figured out what that meant. In the meanwhile, we're gonna go to check out Caina, because I realize it has a little thing we can read now. As the year in Cayenne settled after 2 decades of occupation, it's almost recognizable from the hamlet that first came into Brazil's possession. Local landowners gradually turning into a prevalent institution, the iron grip of the military commands slowly got sidelined in recent years. Rubber tappers who initially sought new opportunities grew in influence and began employing their means of control. Local francophone populace found the steady flow of Brazilian novo rich not much unexpected, for who may resist the most serene and rich lands of Guyana. Like those European colonists a generation ago who founded many plantations, the bureaucrats in Brazil did not risk the alluring rubber output into market circulation, overlooking the exploitation that finances the extraction base. For the average local in Cayenne, life is only marginally better than before in this new oligarchy. Fairly speaking, Cayenne is finally a territory of Brazil, which is to say they have a civilian administration. Regardless of legitimacy, as a separatist once questioned, the new Guyana government can proudly proclaim itself integrally Brazilian, albeit as a regionally connected minority regime. Although some efforts to encourage Cayenne's residents to see themselves as no different from other Amazonian Brazilians have taken consistent since Vargas' initial takeover back in the Second World War, it is inevitable for the Francophone Creoles to find themselves a distinct breed from the national Portuguese majority, who barely involve themselves in local affairs. Within the current framework, civil liberties such as voting are still out of the question, and their best bet is now to learn Portuguese and hope they'd see his fellow citizens eventually in 2 or 3 generations. Well, let's get to it. I think let's work on supporting local peasants. Well, that's a slight rise. This will be popularity just rises, which is going to be more support. Let's support the rural peasants. Dr. Adhemar is above all things a conscious man. He is conscious of his fatherland, its peoples, and most importantly, conscious of the problems that afflict them. Unlike his predecessors, he will not provide half measures to solve them. For years, the noble cause of the establishment and enlargement of the rights and benefits of the Brazilian working man have been championed by successive presidential administrations. However, they've only succeeded in aiding the urban industrial worker of Brazil, while leaving the rural agricultural workers to the same old conditions of exploitation and poverty. But they need not to worry, for the rural workers of Brazil have no better friend than President Adhemar de Barros. For one of the new bold reforms shall be to extend the present working rights and regulations legislature, including the right unites to all Brazilian rural workers. Brazil's historical wrongs shall finally be righted. President Adhemar does it while stealing the thunder from the PDC. There is nothing wrong with that. There we go. Let's do some tech. Let's do rubber processing, I guess. I think we might have a couple synthetic plants. That could help ever so marginally. How are the elections going here? They're trying to catch up. Well, you know what? Well, they go defensive. We go offensive. I'll probably slander that guy next round if I think of it. There goes the autosave. these are done. Let's go ahead and do some agrarian reforms, in quotation marks. Maybe you are, but sometimes one must be honest with oneself, and that rule also applies to Adhemar. For while the agrarian reform bill corrects regional balances, it is already opposed by oligarchs. If we were to try to do radical agrarian reform, which would require constitutional reform to make payment in bonds remain possible, he shall totally loses their support. Thus, administration shall stick with payments in cash as stated in Brazil's constitution to appease everyone. However, he shall be creative with that, as the amount of money needed for such a reform is unfortunately too big, and he shall be in need of some of it also for his other goals. So he will start expropriations in distant regions where there are small groups of isolated villagers or enough literate voters to be swayed, and then show that on TV, newspaper, and radio, then proceed to repeat that before every election once a year. Cheap and popular is the best kind of solution in the eyes of President Adhemar. "45 minutes on the clock. Edna was almost stamping her feet, her physical agitation oculated only by a dull brown table. Almost as dull as her damn associates, who should have already been out here by now out of mere loyalty. She tried again. "My friends, we'll not get another chance like this, Bill. Agrarian reform will not happen with the Udenistas. It will not happen with the Kubitschek's cartels. It will only happen with us. We in the PTB at least must make it stand for the farmers." More from the down table spoke. "Goulart's bill is better. We must vote with him." Another smattering of applause, and Graves murmured out, "Oh, even puppet shows were less childish." "But Goulart's bill will not pass, so who are you really voting with?" Her retort came out faster than their brain could process it. The back end of the room looked startled. "Django's bill is great. We agree on that. But when there is no great, we must at least have the good." Then the dam broke. "How will he control sharecropping?" They talked to Adhemar later. "Why would Adhemar do anything for us?" "Because they were in a coalition." "You have a party to represent, Edna. A party, not a mob. People have the right to opinions. You put even Jezebel to shame." At least the room was equally against her. Her decorum wasn't dead yet every time her colleagues attacked her, clasped by a fear of their constituents' ire, their fear of her own grew. What had begun as an outright rebellion melted into paper shuffling and seat squealing. 11 minutes to go. A majority secured. This Jezebel was still the queen of her palace. All in a half hour's work. Look at that. The act proposed by Filinto Mueller has been called by the president one of the most impressive and important pieces of legislation in Brazilian history, designed to solve the latifundo crisis and redistribute land at the countryside. However, the bill has been criticized by relatives of the PSD and PTB for being less ambitious than ex-President Lott's bill on agrarian reform and more limited in scope. If I'm not mistaken, that was kind of just a piecemeal bill. The secretarial pool insisted that they could pack things away on his behalf, but Jair Dantas Ribeiro was quite adamant that he handled this matter himself. "I don't have much time, and what I don't take, I won't need." They had at least done him the courtesy of settling aside 2 cardboard boxes tucked into a free corner of his office. After the ceremonial handshakes and farewells in the main hall, Ribeiro made his way here to the office that was once his. I'm going to make sure I up this. Hold on, let me just... I'm gonna fuck around with these production units real quick. There we go. He opened up. After the ceremonial handshakes and farewells in the main hall, Ribeiro made his way here to the box that was once his. He opened up one of the boxes and began to put away that which he valued most, a black leather notebook, which he'd used to store his contacts and personal thoughts, encoding in a private cipher, taught him by friends in the intelligence so many years ago. Framed photographs on the wall of the general with allies and mentors. He smiled as he took one of them and locked down from the wall. Another picture caught his eye. It was a group of young men, 20 in total, with immaculate uniforms and stern faces that tried to hold back smiles. He saw himself there, older than the rest, but with youthful vitality that seemed so distant now. Below read a placard. General's Staff School, Class of 31. He thought of the other faces there. Some had kept in touch with him, others diverged from the paths he walked. At least a few of them already passed on from this life, but they were so similar to each other. Same background, similar families, often connected. Yet there he was, a kid who started from the slums and made his way to the highest post in the Brazilian army. His smile entrenched, he packed the photo away. Sure, his career had ebbs and flows. He'd spent a fair amount of it in effective exile, and knew that his removal would clear the way for other officers less zealous in the prosecution of leftist agitators than he was. But as he packed away the rest of his personal effects, Ribeiro found he had no regrets. He served Brazil diligently and was happy to find some rest in his beloved Northeast, but he did regret not taking some assistance in bringing these boxes to his car. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Ooh, we can do another Senate campaign. We're now ahead there. That got pretty funnily for us. We're gonna go out of our way to slander this guy. Are we gonna have time to get all the way down here? Just a couple of 14-day focuses back and forth. Guess we'll have to find out, won't we? Well, we'll get working on it. How long do we have left? Just one day. We can get an extra seat. And then... Great news is now coming from the Midwestern Brazilian state of Mato Grosso. In a small village of Santa Teresina del Oeste, in a solemn official state event, President Adhemar Barros announced the start of Brazil's own agrarian reform. He's openly declared, from now on, every villager will have its own field, which shall guarantee to him or her total and complete economic independence. Now, let it be clear that this is only the beginning of a slow incremental process that shall, once finished, be covering the entire country, which will start from the poorest villages and eventually move up to larger towns. And may no one in this country ever forget that this process was achieved by not radicals and idealists in the PTB, but it's thanks to my administration and the PSP that Brazil's finally been able to reach this historical milestone. This event was assisted by gigantic crowds, both from the village and other population centers near it. All cheered Adhemar's declaration, which was soon followed by a scene of the president giving a new landowner shovels, sack of seeds, and other agricultural paraphernalia. He was received by many of the village's housewives, who gave him warm, grateful hugs and kisses on the cheeks. Brazil may rest easy, for Adhemar has put it on the road towards progress. Fantabulous. But they just want more and more. It is done. President Adhemar may now rest easy, for the Brazilian Gordian knot that was the grain reform is a fait accompli. Brazilian people can rest easy that indeed the fatherland's greatest son, Dr. Adhemar, is always on their side. But in this no man's land that is a tropical Brazilian fatherland, rest in political terms is something only reserved for the dead, unfortunately. For he must now move on to another pressing issue affecting the Brazilian farmer, the supply of fertilizers for Brazilian agriculture. For if that is assured, the administration shall be able to expand Brazil's agriculture to more soils and increase its productivity in never-seen proportions, which should hopefully, again, increase Adhemar's approval rate in the Brazilian countryside. There we go. Probably do a campaign here. And maybe here. Do Bahia first, I think. Meanwhile, we can do got a pretty remarkable legacy right now, which is nice to see. Need something to help our legacy even more. Let's get working on social security reform. A nation can be considered extremely lucky when its leaders highly in tune with its people and conscious of their needs and woes. And guess what Brazil has? Just one of those. Thus, Brazil is very lucky to have Dr. Adhemar de Barros, for no one is more conscious of the issues that afflict the Brazilian people than him, especially when it comes to issues facing Brazil's social security system. His administration is fully aware of the overly complicated structure, which gets even more complicated when no one considers that it is under the jurisdiction of different institutions. But what makes a conscious leader isn't only knowing the problems, but also solving them. Thus, the Adhemar administration shall make a system for all under one single national social security institute, which shall expand access to social security to levels never seen before. The Guaria Falls, one of the most fascinating hidden gems in the vast Brazilian landscape created by Mother Nature. Hidden between the two South American countries, this wonderful wonder of nature is capable of surprising anyone with its beautiful waterfalls gathered in a horseshoe shape that reverberates throughout the forest before anyone sees it. However, its news visitors weren't there to tour. Gathered at a table in the forest, carefully positioned to look over the waterfall, a group of architects worked towards the realization of another wonder, but built by men: the construction of the largest hydroelectric dam in the world. In this forgotten corner in the middle of nowhere was the perfect place for such an achievement. If our calculations are correct, this is the ideal spot on the border of Paraguay, close to Foz do Iguaçu. Pointing out the chief engineer, pointing with a pen at the map laid on the table. If the government approves, we'll finally be able to put our hands in the dough and start working for real. Until then, don't lose heart, guys. You're about to make history, so smile for being a part of it. Before he could call off the meeting satisfied, a young architect raised his arm. Sir, do you really think it's worth destroying the waterfalls for the sake of the dam? A moment's silence followed, with dozens of glares pointed at the architect, awkwardly waiting for the chief's response. We gave a friendly smirk before replying, "Of course not. We'll only be harnessing its spirit and energy for the betterment of Brazil." He stood up, resting his arm on the embarrassed architect's shoulders. "Think of the benefits this will bring us. Think of the grateful faces of all the Brazilians to finally have lights in their homes. Isn't that what you want, or better, what we want?" The architect quietly nods, not quite convinced of his boss's optimism. No sacrifice is too great for Brazil's well-being. We're really gonna fucking dam a crazy-ass waterfall. Aren't we? While it was a loud and extremely heated afternoon in the Brazilian palace of Brasilia, especially in the president's office in the Planalto Palace, where President de Barros' cabinet was in a tense debate on how to better supply Brazil's agricultural sector with the much-needed fertilizer for its development. At that very moment, Benedito Manes Barreto, Brazil's economy minister, was continuing a very long and dull speech about how his scheme of a very complicated and bureaucratic apparatus of state-owned fertilizer companies was the best option, before vehemently interrupted by Adhemar. "Enough, Benedito. These are nothing but foolish dreams. We need more real and practical solutions that do not give Lacerda, that bloody crow, any ammunition against us." After that interruption came the turn of the foreign minister, Vasco Leitão de Cunha, to lecture and moralize. In his opinion, the solution to the problem of the fertilizer was to ask the United States, in his opinion, Brazil's greatest ally, for aid. It would cost Brazil's coffers dearly, however, the agricultural sector would indeed get the best fertilizer currently on the market. Adhemar also shouted him down, for as much as he didn't want to angle Lacerda, he also didn't want to please him. This discussion was still ongoing. Liana Clemente, President Adhemar's personal secretary, entered the room with cups of water and coffee for all cabinet members. While she was walking around the room, giving her beverages, swaying her hips suggestively while doing so, she commented on another alternative. "Why not ask the Reich for help? Is it true that fertilizers would be lesser quality? But they would be cheaper and they could be provide much greater quantity. Adhemar took a deep sip of his coffee cup and sat pensively in the seat. No matter what, a decision had to be made. Thus, for better or worse. Maybe the lady had a point. Mayhaps. Alright, what's going on here? They're killing themselves in front of us. We don't have to do anything. We just pick up where they make the mistakes. And oh, what mistakes they are making. What do we even research at this point? Do helicopters, I guess. That I don't know. Let's do some bullshit. I'm not too worried. I'm not even sure we're gonna have much more in the way of so these rates are, the rates are outright maxed out here. Some mechanization there. There we go. We can fund some more congressional campaigns. Adhemar's not so happy anymore, but he'll perk up once he sees those focuses. Meanwhile, we'll get working down here. We'll probably do the populating in the northeast. That'll probably be our best bet. So get the assistance of new friends. If there's something that Adhemar has learned, and learned well throughout his long and controversial careers, that the politics in life is never good to limit your number of friends. Thus, why should the administration limit to having only the U.S. as a partner? As its leading commercial partner. Therefore, it does, especially if it doesn't benefit Brazil. Therefore, following its lesson, why not seek better options? And there is no better option than reaching out to our good friend Hermann Josefovs and his companies, one of his companies, IG Farben, through the German ambassador. During World War I, Germany was cut off from the supply of Chilean nitrates, which forced them to invent new methods to produce fertilizers. Haber-Bosch process made it available for Germany to produce nitrates on their own and helped to increase nitrogen fertilizer production. So President Adhemar shall seek his new friends and check what they can offer Brazil. Interesting, interesting. There we go. One in here. Do I want to go greedy? I might go greedy. What's gonna be the harm? Well, I can think of plenty of potential harms, but we don't need to think about that right now. At least as new friends, now let's expand the Ministry of Agriculture. Now first, I should probably check Goiás. That's in the Central West. So if we want to push for that, our best bet is going to be the Northeast at this point. Really, no matter what, investment-wise. I feel like the GUI's glitching out here because we should be ahead there. Expand the Ministry of Agriculture. When it comes to further fulfill his goals in the realm of agriculture, President Adhemar fully knows he must take the Herculean task of reforming the whole of the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture from top to bottom, and the list of his goals is indeed an extensive one. First, there's the creation of service to guide the work of irrigation and reforestation. Second, there are the massive infrastructure efforts of clearing rivers and the building canals. Third, there's starting intimate coordination between the technical services stations, assistance in the agricultural research institutes. Fourth, there's the installation of regional and municipal services, which are intended for the mechanization of agricultural work. And finally, there is the immediate organization of the real estate registry. Many goals to be reached, and they shall indeed be reached. As always, when it comes to Adhemar, the cost shall not be considered. How are we doing economically? Pretty. Oh, Jesus. Our social spending is so fucking capped out. Oh my fucking god. That is actually kind of concerning. Wow. Jesus. Life is the same as ever. My father's still occupied with business at Farben, and this time of the year is usually very busy for the company. The president nodded knowingly at the ambassador and gave an amiable smile. I'll be honest, it's a bit hectic around here too. Everyone agrees it's a vital time for Brazil, but no one agrees why it is or what needs to be done about it. Half the people against me don't even have any ideas, they just don't like mine. The president frowns a moment before continuing jovially. If I may, Robert, and I would say that both you and your father have done a great job, and even if things might seem a little hectic times, your future seems bright. The diplomat allowed himself a grin at the compliment and leaned back into the plush chair, visibly relaxing. Danke, Mr. President. It's going to be worth it, I think. Our prospects are looking better than ever, and we plan expansion into new markets soon. And that reminds me, I want to ask a favor. As you know, Brazil is an agricultural nation at heart, and we are always looking for ways to cut back on expenses. I would be in your debt if your father could contact our mutual friend, Mr. Abbs, to see if he would happen to have any spare fertilizer he wanted to sell. It's a real bottleneck on our production right now. The young ambassador nodded eagerly as he sat up to respond. I can certainly do that for you, President. And as a matter of fact, I'm confident we'll not only provide as much as you need, but we can also ship it for the lowest possible price. I promise you won't regret this. After a shake of hands and a final exchange of pleasantries with Adhemar, the ambassador returned to the embassy with barely concealed excitement. When he rose the following morning, he called his father. I need to speak with Abbs. Shit, I don't think we're going to have time to, those elections are coming up real quick. Campaign here. I think I got too greedy. Alright, let's do irrigation channels in Nordeste. President Adhemar de Barros wasn't born yesterday, so both he and his administration aren't blind to one of the biggest problems that afflict Brazil, the issue of droughts in the Northeast, a problem that is old as Brazil itself. Thus, to solve it, he has come up with the most modern and efficient solution possible. His administration shall drastically expand the irrigation system in Brazil's Northeast by using modern automatic sprinkler systems, with the aim to make it cover the entire region. When it comes to the matter of the poor quality of soil in the Northeast, to solve that, his administration shall deliver new tools and machines to every farmer. No matter what, the President Adhemar de Barros' presidency shall be renowned for its popular and modern policies. If you guys ever forget who the president is, you'll have that nice little reminder. We're still doing well here. These are narrow-ass ties. But if we're still on top... campaign here. Get something in Nacre if nothing else. This says rises, so it's not a slight rise. So I think we'll get a nice boost. Probably enough to push us over the rest here. Yeah, okay, we're covered. And if we get one last one, we'll send it here. Meanwhile, we might as well get working on this. Let's do some guaranteed maternity leave, rather. The relationship between President Tabaros and his VP Lot can't be described as the most peaceful or amenable. Both hold a very fierce distaste for the other. Adhemar selects Edna since she's a monument to do things he hates above all. The Vargas establishment he wants to replace, and the new left-wing type of progressive politics. But he must admit that sometimes she has good ideas. Using her plans from time to time is very helpful in consolidating PSP's support among women. Thus, her idea for maternity leave should encourage more population growth, which will look so nice on graphs for the PSP's next electoral campaign. Well, no, now we're ahead here. So I'm confused. Guess the map can't handle this much purple. I guess, I don't know. September's ended. So we can wake me up when September ends. Okay, how are we doing? Who's campaigning where? We're fine there, we're fine there. Okay, shit. We'll flip the seat there. We should be flipping this seat. Yeah, we'll do this. And then... yeah, I think that's gonna have to be it. I'm trying to maximize this as best we can, but I think we're doing an okay job. We're defending, I think, most all of our seats. And we're getting into some decent pickup opportunities at that. I don't know if there's a cheat to push our luck even more. Even if there was, I don't think I'd do it. Adhemar looked down at his desk, only now noticing how incredibly still he had been for the past few minutes. Had he really only been so deep in thought? Sitting back up, he placed his hands on the sleek surface of the desk, trying to keep his mind organized, lest it wander any further. A past conversation with Edna came to mind. Guaranteed maternity leave, one forced by law, was what women wanted. But the truth was, whether man or woman, and it represented some of the common progressive talking points. Where some saw a drain on resources, people like her saw an investment in families. Investment in families. Now they said it out loud, a nice ring to it. This was the kind of thing that made the birth rate go up. More Brazilians meant a stronger Brazil. Hell, his fortune might even put up in the homes of those few people who were born and lived thanks to his clever... There was again, that intricate awareness of stillness. Clasping his hands together, Adhemar straightened his back. As much as he would like to put his name down on it, simply wasn't an option. And even as proposal was that, Neza was still pushing it through. He was a smart man. He would come up with other ideas. Better ideas in the future. Let her have this one. Do hospices. Or admin. Hospitals. Or social security. Let's do admin offices, labor courts in big cities. Well, Brazil as a country has a lot to thank Dr. Getulio Vargas for in terms of the fairly good labor laws he created during his long administration. Enforcing them is another matter entirely. And as a true successor, President Adhemar and his PSP government will right the wrongs of the past, plug the legal holes on the current legislation, and continue on the long road of progress that Vargas opened for the Brazilian nation. In this way, a labor court will be established in every state capital to protect Brazilian citizens from corporate greed and the protection of the PSP. There we go. Let's do... Shit, our inflation's crazy. If we can at least get our GDP up, I think we'll be okay. Brazil votes. And we picked up 6 seats. Labor holds on to the ones that they had before. That's probably okay. I can live with that. How do we end up doing? Picked up all these Northeast states. We didn't win here, which I thought we were going to. We had... No, we were ahead in these ones, so I don't know what happened. It's like hard-coded to stay? I don't know. It's a little confusing. Because we had more votes there. At its core, politics, beneath the layers of platitudes, scheming, and demagoguing, resembled a family. The people in Brazil understood this fact in such clear terms as President Adhemar, Brazil's humble patron. Humble. Sure, there were disputes from time to time, but he understood that the only way to keep the family in order was to keep everyone satisfied. Uncle Pedro helps you secure a district vote, and he gets a little something extra next Christmas. Yet the president was caught between two families. With his election over, he finally had time to spend with the ones he really cared about. Standing at the center of the best restaurant in Sao Paulo, he held up a glass of champagne and toasted his son's election as federal deputy. Sitting down to finish his meal, he smiles to himself as his son waxed lyrical about his plans to improve the country's plastic industry. Perhaps the chemistry the president had always teased him about was finally paying off. Soon after, Adhemar found himself bickering with his son-in-law. Son-in-law? Businessman hammered Adhemar on why the country not yet have a color TV football channel. Despite his annoyance, Adhemar could not help but admire the young man's passion and courage to stand up to the man that had got him the job in the first place. That took a different type of balls. As the hours passed by and the night neared its end, Adhemar couldn't ignore how incomplete this gathering felt. It was times like this that his brother would always lift his spirits up with a quick-witted remark, but Antonio was gone. Looking over the table, he saw his other sibling, Geraldo, was similarly sunken eyes. Age was catching up on all of them. But seeing all the smiling faces and joyous laughter reminded the president why he had to keep pushing to leave behind a legacy that his two families would always be as happy as they are right now. As Adhemar moved to re-enter the conversational fray, a single teardrop into his glass of sherry. We do overtime for workers. I think I'll hold tight right now. Oh, we will bring in some Paulista politicians, though. Keep it nice and centered. Vice President Lott felt the air change as the motorcade left Asuncion city limits. The newly restored capital, which had been in ruins not so long ago, suffocated in the airport terminal and the grand boulevards and the well-to-do neighborhoods with stores full of American and Brazilian consumer goods. All that construction she knew was financed by dirty money of Adhemar and his friends. Outside the barrios, which housed the poor, invisible poor, the whole city practically reeked of Adhemar. Some dull feeling clung to her. You must pass on my thanks to Barros when he returned, Vice President. Turning away from the window, Edna saw a meek smile on the thin lips of Paraguay's new president. Fresh from the other day's inauguration, Gustavo Gonzalez had a look of an old gentleman, but the suit he wore fit him badly, as if he had suddenly lost or gained weight. I will, of course, Mr. President. And thank you for showing me the city. I read about the war in the papers, but it'll be very different seeing a real compound Fulna used during liberation. Don't give your hopes up too much. Trenches dug up during the last offensive before the capital, already half claimed by jungle. But my people and your people agreed it'd make for a good photo op. Do you think it's right that... He turned to the window, staring at the Vascon field. Do you think it's right that those people out there still toil away just as they did under Marengo? So the war never happened. I've been president for 5 minutes, but the party bosses have already told me what they think of land reform. I know very well who stands behind them. Same old story, isn't it? That funny feeling was around Edna like a blanket. Gonzalez gave her a sympathetic look. Maybe he felt sorry for her, or sorry for himself. Edna knew then what the feeling was. It was guilt. I think we're nearing in to minimum wage. Let's do unemployment benefits. Every Brazilian deserves a job, but many are still unable to get one, be it for health reasons or because they simply cannot find one yet. In normal situations, some of those who oppose us would argue that increasing subsidies for the unemployed would be far too expensive and inflate the balloon economy. But we're not in normal circumstances. As per our efforts, the number of employed has significantly increased, and naturally, the unemployed have decreased. Increasing benefits to those who need it won't make a dent in our budget, no matter how anyone looks at it. With a strong subsidy program for everyone, our March for Progress will take 100 more steps forward. I know something is going to happen soon. I don't know about how soon, but soon I know. Well, let's keep working over on modernizing administration. Let's do modernizing the administration. Brazil cannot be modernized if the people who control it aren't working towards it. There remains much to be done in our bureaucratic agencies, which are filled with men who we cannot trust. For New Brazil, expanding our control in many agencies and pointing our trusted experts to help conduct plans for a good goal is a must. If those people don't work enough to help fulfill the modernization of our sacred land, blessed by God, then we fire them and replace them with those willing to work with us. Oh. The roasted aroma of cafezino swirled with a distant scent of avgas. Adhemar summoned Lotto to Brazil's newest luxury aero club, a pit stop in what Lotto was told was a day off, but was in fact a countrywide flight tour, a return to Adhemar's aviator days. Following the presidential security deal, I found Adhemar sipping coffee in the lounge. The marble floors reflected the blue flowing through the floor-to-ceiling glass. From far away enough, he was engulfed, suspended in endless azure. Lotto waved, but Adhemar's focus was on something above the Cerrado's verdant vistas. First a speech, then a shape. Then the sound of a single piston engine as Palestina swooped over onto the asphalt. Smooth and steady. A few grounded onlookers waved at it. One blew a kiss, but the craft didn't slow down. It roared. Instead of stopping, it sped up, just as Lotto took his seat. The aircraft was soaring above Brazil once more. A touch-and-go landing. For those who wanted to stay, they stopped by, but still had fuel to keep going. Out into the sunset, wings gleamed for a moment, as if it winked. I want that second term, Adhemar said. Lotto knew this was coming, but... You think it's the right time? The opposition would rally against us of everything they have. Pushing this change through demanded an intricate game plan. There won't be time left if we wait. Adhemar's finger tightened on the rim of his cup, but he knew it should be possible. He had a wild card, the man everything hinged on, who was eager to be back in the spotlight. Adhemar checked his Junkaz ticking that very second that he knew it was his turn to fly. Standing up, donning his pilot's cap, he knew he'd return to the heavens once more. Just before that, though, he turned to Lotto. Call Kubishek. I know he'll be interested. So did we... Oh no. I mean, I'm okay with this for the record, but I'm moving on. But I need to we'll kind of have a bill passing real quick. So I'm gonna load the autosave real quick, just so we can get that bill finished. Because I don't know if that bill just sitting there will glitch out the game. It might not. I'm not sure. Oh wait, no, that was the wrong save. I need to do the autosave. Yeah, riveting stuff, I know. That's the end of the video. End of the night even. I gotta go to bed. I gotta wake up at 7 tomorrow? My alarm's at 6:45. Yep, 6:45 for work. It's 11:19 if you're curious. So I'm pushing it a little bit. I'm getting under 8 hours. I'm gonna... Just because I want to make sure. Unemployment benefits, modernize the administration. There we go. And now let's go ahead and do this. This bill cannot fail, for it will be the one that could guarantee our hold on government for the years to come. Whatever resources we have to ensure the votes in Congress, we shall use it. Who cares about what a random nobody economist has to say about how we spend our money? We can pass our reforms without conflict. We should only worry about the economy later. Sure, if you say so. How we doing? Can really be UDN and the USB, so let's do it. Let's wait till this passes. Did we really get the 0 roll there? For both of those. There we go. We'll do this one real quick as well. Yeah, another victory. There's a fact that cannot be denied by anyone sitting on Brazilian soil, and that fact is that only the good old PSP truly cares about the people. No political party has improved the life of the average Brazilian as much as it has a glorious PSP. As much of a glorious PSP once it reached the government. And if the PSP is more powerful than ever, it is thanks to Vargas's rightful heir and Brazil's greatest president, Dr. Adhemar de Barros. Thanks to him, agriculture is more efficient than ever, social security is finally giving real help, and healthcare is becoming innovative. Brazil is reaching the final stop on the road towards progress, and it can only be thank the great man that leads it there, President Adhemar de Barros. And like that. I'll let that pass. I'm going to finish reading these events. My fellow Brazilians, I must thank you all for your continued support. I couldn't be more grateful. Adhemar brought his hand to his heart. However, it seems that there are some who are not as happy with me, and I'm not talking about my opposition. Instead, I talk to you about a much closer threat. I speak of the PSP members, if you can call them that. who continuously sabotaged me and the party that they'd pledged their loyalty to. The crowd jeered at the thought of PSP members fighting against their leader. Maybe they would fare better in the UDN. The crowd erupted in laughter. I joke, but these people are the same types who abandoned Vargas, just as I try to keep the nation running through thick and thin. These crooks try to hamper me in the exact way, but I won't go down easy. The crowd erupted into cheers as Adhemar raised her fist to the air. Rating with intent by radio was 10 credo. Adhemar was getting far by touting his victories and portraying himself as the second coming of Vargas. He wouldn't just stick to this, though, 10 credo. There would be much more of him to come. Poor man's Vargas is still Vargas. Smiles lit up across the chamber of deputies as Brazil's fork had rejoiced in the new social security. To some, victory may have already been guaranteed, but the PSP still relishes all its successes. As Romo de Campos Vergal and Filinto Mueller chatted following the bill's passing, they testified to this fact by tolerating one each other for a few minutes. Congratulations, Campos. It's an achievement to be proud of. Mueller knew that the work Campos put into his votes as PSP leader in the chamber, cracking the whip and greasing the palms before the big moment. The PSP has come from nothing to become something exception. What? Even now I cannot resist snudge at. Well, besides every great man like President Adhemar, a dozen smaller men at his side. Campos will not surrender that. Some... Oh, look at that. We have an historic legacy now. That is beautiful. Some, like myself, have been with the core PSP's social project. Others came when the job was already done. Like a garish garnish to a finished cake. Perhaps Adhemar would need men like me if the people in his employ were capable enough to assist a president. Mueller almost forgot to add the thin veneer of politeness, his words soaking in venom. It's one thing to do doing the dirty work for the local governor. It's another having it to run the country. You would know all about this dirty work, wouldn't you? The daggers are now fully unsheathed, pointed at their throats. I'm sure there are plenty of victims from your time with Vargas who can tell me about your skills. I'd be willing to show you myself. But look at the time. I'm afraid I have to get going now. Mueller purposely brushed off Campos as he walked by, offering a last remark. We've come a long way together, you know. But you wouldn't know the full extent of our political rise until he fell on the face of the earth. Well, it's not ominous at all. Well, it's time for true progress. 30 years of Adhemar Barros has single-handedly bulldozed through many of the issues Brazil's been facing for years. Corruption, military inadequacy, economic woes, you name it, Dr. Adhemar seen to the problem and diagnosed it as necessary. Of course, now that Brazil is such a radically different nation, we can only truly accommodate the changing circumstance by modifying the Brazilian constitution as necessary. It was meant as a living document after all, and far be it from us to deprive Brazil from true prosperity because of something petty, such as adhering to updated rules. And after all, if anyone knows what Brazil needs, it is Adhemar. Well, we have a giant that needs to rest on his laurels. So we will see what Mr. de Barros gets up to next time. We even have land redistribution of 14.2 years. Jesus. Okay, 3.5 years. That's going to be a lot. I'll read this and then I'm done. The passage of land reform through the Senate was just the first step of the easy part. Now the government's redistributed millions of acres of farmland in a timely manner to fulfill their promise, lest the rural poor strike and revolt. How many fucking projects do we have? My god. This is crazy. And this is the end of the video. I gotta go to bed. I gotta shower and then go to bed, rather. But thanks for watching, gang. Like, dislike if you didn't. The sub button, the notification bell, do all that fun stuff. I thank you for watching. My name has been Mr. Dogboat333, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.